I moved my salary to a new card, and just a few hours later, they showed up furious. It wasn't a big decision. At least, that's what I told myself. Just a simple change. A new card. A new account. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was the first time in years I chose myself. My name is Henry Carter. I'm 62 years old. And for the last 5 years, I've been living in a house that never truly felt like mine. After my first wife passed away, I didn't think I'd ever marry again. But loneliness has a way of changing decisions. That's when I met Laura. She was kind, at least in the beginning, warm, supportive, and she had a daughter, Sophie. At first, everything felt normal, like I had a second chance at family. But slowly, things changed. Not suddenly, quietly, almost invisible. Laura started asking about my finances. Just planning for the future, she'd say. Sophie was more direct. You should combine everything, she once told me. It's easier that way. Easier. That word again. So I did it. Joint account. Shared access. Because I trusted them. Or maybe because I didn't want to feel alone again. At first, it was fine. Then the spending started. Small things. Shopping. Trips. Things I didn't question. Because I wanted peace. But peace has a price. And I was the one paying it. Every month, my salary came in and disappeared faster than I could understand. When I asked about it, there was always an answer. Bills, expenses, family needs. But something didn't feel right. So one day, I checked, really checked. And what I saw changed everything. Large transfers, unknown payments, things I never approved. My hands went cold. Because now, this wasn't misunderstanding. This was control. They weren't managing my money. They were using it, without asking, without telling. And the worst part? They acted like it was normal. That night, I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I didn't confront them. Because I needed to be sure. And once I made a decision. The next morning, I went to the bank. Alone. No discussion. No warning. I opened a new account. Different bank. Different card. And then, I moved everything. My salary. My savings. Every last dollar. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because, for the first time, I saw the truth. This wasn't a family. This was dependency. And I was the source. When I got home, everything looked the same. Laura in the kitchen. Sophie on her phone. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. Hey, Laura said casually. You're home early. I nodded. Yeah, I replied. Normal tone. Normal face. Because they didn't know yet. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not until they figured it out themselves. Hours passed. Quiet. Peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Then, the moment came. Sophie stood up suddenly. Her face changed. Confused. Then, angry. Mom, she said. Laura looked at her. What is it? She asked. Sophie showed her phone. I can't access the account, she said. Silence. Laura frowned. What do you mean? She asked. It's not working, Sophie replied. Everything is gone. Gone. That word echoed in the room. Laura turned to me slowly. And, for the first time, her expression wasn't calm. It was sharp. What did you do? She asked. There it was. No confusion. No softness. Just accusation. I looked at her, calm, steady, and said something I should have said a long time ago. I took back what's mine. Silence. Because that sentence changed everything. Sophie's face turned red. You can't do that, she snapped. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Yes, I said quietly. I can. That's when Laura stood up. Slowly, dangerously calm. "Fix it," she said. Not a request, a command. I shook my head. No, that single word was the beginning of the end, because a few hours later, they weren't just angry. They were furious, and they were about to do something they couldn't take back. Because the moment I took control of my money, I exposed everything they were hiding. The silence didn't last long. It never does. When control slips, Laura stared at me. Not shocked, not confused, angry. The kind of anger that comes from losing something you thought was yours. "You need to fix this," she said again. Same tone, same command, like I was still the man who would just nod and obey. But I wasn't. Not anymore. "I'm not fixing anything," I replied. Calm, steady. That made it worse, because now they knew this wasn't temporary. Sophie stepped forward, her voice sharper. "You moved all the money?" she demanded. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Her eyes widened. "Are you serious right now?" she snapped. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. Not concern, not fear, loss, not of family, of access. "It's my salary," I said. "My account, my decision." Laura let out a slow breath, trying to stay calm, but failing. "You're overreacting," she said. That word, overreacting, always used when someone doesn't want to admit the truth. "I checked the transactions," I replied. That changed everything, because now there was no pretending. Laura froze, just for a second, but I saw it. "You went through the account?" she asked, like I had done something wrong. "Yes," I said. Silence. Then Sophie laughed, not amused, annoyed. "Wow," she said. "So now you don't trust us?" I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was obvious. "No," I said finally. "I don't." That hit harder than anything, because trust was the one thing they thought they controlled. "You're unbelievable," Sophie snapped. "All we did was manage things." "Without telling me?" I replied. She hesitated, just for a moment. Then, "We're family," she said. There it was again. That word, family, used like permission, used like ownership. "No," I said quietly, "that's not how this works." Laura stepped closer, her voice lower now, more dangerous. "You're making a mistake," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that tone. "No," I replied. "I'm correcting one." That was it. That was the breaking point. Sophie slammed her hand on the table. "This is insane!" she shouted. "You can't just cut us off like this." I stayed calm, because now I understood something important. This wasn't about fairness. This was about dependence. They needed that money, and I had just taken it away. "You'll get what's fair," I said. That made them both stop. "What does that mean?" Laura asked. "It means," I said slowly, "I'm not funding everything anymore." Silence. Heavy. Because now, the truth was out. "You're punishing us," Sophie said. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "I'm protecting myself." Laura's expression changed. Less anger, more calculation. Because now, she was thinking, planning. "Fine," she said, suddenly. Too quickly. Too easily. That alone told me something was wrong. "If that's what you want," she added. Then she turned away, walked toward her room. Sophie followed. But before she left, she looked back at me and said something that made my stomach drop. "You're going to regret this." Then she walked away. The house went quiet. Too quiet. And that's when I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Because people who depend on control don't let go easily. I sat down slowly, thinking, because something about Laura's reaction didn't feel right. She gave up too fast. And people like her don't give up. They adapt. They find another way. That night, I locked my door, something I had never done before, because for the first time, I didn't feel safe in my own home. Hours passed, quiet, still. Then, a sound, soft, near the door. My eyes opened instantly, because now, instinct was louder than comfort. I stayed still, listened. Another sound, like someone trying to open it. My heart started beating faster, because that wasn't anger anymore. That was something else, something dangerous. I stood up slowly, moved toward the door, and just as I reached it, the handle moved, hard, then stopped. Silence, then footsteps. Walking away. I didn't open the door, didn't move, because now everything had changed. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about control, and they weren't done trying to take it back. I stepped away, slowly, because one thing was clear. They weren't going to ask next time, and whatever they were planning was already in motion. I didn't sleep. Not really, because once you hear someone trying to open your door, you don't just go back to normal. You wait, you listen, you think, and that's exactly what I did. The house was quiet again, too quiet, like nothing had happened. But I knew better, because that wasn't frustration anymore. That was intent. Morning came slowly. I opened my door carefully, stepped out. Everything looked normal. Kitchen clean, living room silent, like the night before. Never happened. Laura was sitting at the table, coffee in her hand. Calm, too calm. Sophie wasn't there. "Good morning," Laura said. Soft, almost gentle, like nothing had changed. I didn't answer right away, because now I was watching her differently, carefully. "You didn't sleep well," she added. That caught me off guard, because it meant one thing. She knew. "I'm fine," I replied, short, controlled. She nodded slowly, then said something unexpected. "We need to talk." Of course we did, but not the way she meant. I sat down across from her, kept my distance, because now trust wasn't part of this anymore. "I think we both overreacted yesterday," she said. There it was again. That word, overreacted. "No," I said calmly. "I didn't." She paused, just for a second, then smiled slightly. A different smile. Not warm, calculated. "Henry," she said softly, "we're a family." I leaned back slightly, because now that word didn't mean anything. "Family doesn't hide things," I replied. That hit her. I saw it in her eyes. But she recovered quickly. "We didn't hide anything," she said. "Then explain the transfers," I replied. Silence, because there was no explanation, only excuses. And she knew it. Before she could respond, the front door opened, hard. Sophie walked in, fast, angry, and she wasn't alone. A man followed her, tall, confident, too confident. My stomach tightened, because I didn't know him, but something about him felt wrong. "Who is this?" I asked. Sophie didn't hesitate. "This is Daniel," she said. Daniel stepped forward slightly, nodded, like he belonged there. "We need to sort this out," he said. That tone wasn't a suggestion. It was control. I looked at Laura. She didn't react, didn't question it, which meant one thing. She already knew. "You brought someone into my house?" I asked. Sophie crossed her arms. "Our house," she corrected. That was it. That line. That mindset. Everything I needed to hear. "No," I said slowly. "It's not." Daniel stepped closer, trying to dominate the space. "Look," he said, "we don't need to make this ugly." I stared at him, because now, this wasn't just family conflict. This was pressure. Planned pressure. "Then leave," I said. Simple. Direct. He smiled slightly, like he expected resistance. "That's not how this works," he replied. There it was again. Control. I stood up slowly, because now I wasn't going to sit through this. Yes, I said quietly. It is. The room went silent, because something had changed. Not just in me, in the situation. You moved the money, Sophie said sharply. So let's move it back. Demand, not discussion. I shook my head. No. Daniel's expression hardened. Then we have a problem, he said. I looked at him, calm, steady. No, I replied. You do. That shifted everything, because now they weren't dealing with the same man. Sophie stepped forward. You think you can just cut us off? She snapped. I already did, I said. Silence. Heavy. Because that was the truth. And they couldn't change it. Not the way they wanted to. That's when Daniel did something unexpected. He pulled out a folder, placed it on the table, slowly, deliberately. My eyes narrowed, because something about that felt planned. Then let's talk legally, he said. My chest tightened, because now this wasn't just personal. This was strategy. I opened the folder, and what I saw changed everything. Documents, contracts, my name on them, property agreements, transfer clauses, and at the bottom, a signature, my signature, or at least something that looked exactly like it. I froze, because I never signed this. Not this version. This gives us access, Daniel said calmly. Full access. My hands went cold, because now this wasn't just betrayal. This was something worse. Forgery, planning, control at a level I didn't expect. I looked up slowly at all three of them, and in that moment, everything became clear. They didn't just want my money. They wanted everything, and they were ready to take it. But what they didn't realize yet was that they had just crossed a line they could never come back from, because now this wasn't about protection anymore. This was war, and I wasn't going to lose. For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just stared at the papers, at my name, at the signature, because it looked perfect, too perfect. But I knew the truth. I never signed this. Slowly, I closed the folder, placed it back on the table, then looked at them, all three, Laura, Sophie, Daniel, standing there like they already won. You made a mistake, I said quietly. Daniel frowned slightly. I don't think so, he replied. That confidence was about to disappear. I leaned forward. That's not my signature, I said. Silence. Because they weren't expecting that. It matches perfectly, Daniel said. Legally, it holds. Legally. That word made me smile, just a little, because now I understood their plan. They thought they were ahead. They thought they had control. But they missed something. Something important. You're right, I said calmly. It looks real. A pause. But it isn't. Sophie crossed her arms. You can deny it all you want, she said. That doesn't change anything. I stood up slowly, because now it was time. No, I said. It changes everything. I walked toward the cabinet, opened it, took out a small envelope, and placed it on the table. Daniel watched carefully, because now he was paying attention. What's this? He asked. I opened the envelope, pulled out a document, and slid it toward him. Read it, I said. He picked it up. His eyes moved quickly. Then they stopped. His expression changed. Just slightly, but enough. What is this? Sophie asked. He didn't answer immediately, which told me everything. It's a notarized declaration, I said calmly. A record of every document I signed in the last 6 months. Laura's face went still, because now they understood. There's no record of that contract, I continued, which means one thing. I looked directly at Daniel. It's fake. Silence. Heavy. Because now the power shifted. That doesn't prove anything, Sophie snapped. I turned to her. Yes, it does, I said. A court will see this as fraud. A pause. And fraud is a crime. That word hit differently. Crime. Because now, this wasn't just a family argument. This was legal, real, dangerous. Daniel placed the paper down slowly, carefully, because now he was thinking, recalculating. You're threatening us? Laura asked, her voice lower now, less confident. I shook my head. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. Same words, different weight, because now they meant something. You think this scares us? Sophie said. I didn't respond immediately, because the truth? It already did. I also spoke to my lawyer this morning, I added. That froze them. Completely. Because now, this wasn't just evidence. This was action. What? Laura whispered. I nodded slowly. Everything is documented, I said. The transfers, the account activity, a pause, and this. I tapped the fake contract. Daniel leaned back slightly, because now he understood the situation. This wasn't easy anymore. This wasn't control. This was risk. Legal risk. You should leave, I said quietly. No anger, no shouting, just certainty. Sophie opened her mouth, but Daniel stopped her. A small movement, but important, because now he was the one making decisions. He stood up slowly, looked at me, then nodded. Let's go, he said. Laura didn't move at first, because she wasn't used to losing. But now, she didn't have a choice. Sophie glared at me, pure anger, pure frustration, because, for the first time, they had nothing. No control, no leverage, nothing. They walked toward the door, one by one. But just before Laura left, she stopped, turned back, and said something quietly. This isn't over. I looked at her, calm, steady. Yes, I replied. It is. The door closed. And just like that, the house went silent again. But this time, it felt different. Not empty, free. I sat down, slowly, took a deep breath, because for the first time in years, everything was mine again. My money, my decisions, my life. But deep down, I knew something. People like them don't just disappear. They wait, they plan, they try again. But this time, I was ready, because they made one mistake. They thought I was weak, and now they knew the truth. I wasn't someone they could control anymore. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet, not tense, not heavy, just quiet. But I didn't relax, because people like them don't give up. They wait, they plan, and they come back. So I prepared. The very next day, I took action. Not emotional, strategic. I met my lawyer, went through everything, every transaction, every document, every detail. Because now, this wasn't just personal. This was protection.